The heist was
Time to go to work,
meticulously
boys.
planned, as Faro Security Company's armored truck carried a load of cash. A cement truck abruptly blocked its path. Acting without delay, the robbers deployed an excavator to lift and immobilize the armored vehicle. They quickly sliced through its doors and hurled stun grenades to incapacitate the guards. But what they didn't realize was that a young boy seated in a nearby car had seen everything unfold. When the robbers noticed the boy, they instantly ordered him out of the vehicle. Shaking with fear, he tried to call his father, but the call went unanswered. Panicking, the boy had no choice but to obey, lying flat on the ground as the robbers hauled out bags of cash. Just then, a security guard unexpectedly sprang into action, tackling one of the robbers and tearing off his mask. The robber coldly executed all the security guards and the boy. His father, Patrick Hill, witnessed his son's murder with his own eyes. Consumed by fury, he lunged at the attackers, only to be gunned down moments later. Just before blacking out, he locked eyes with the scarred face of the man who pulled the trigger, committing it to memory. Patrick survived by a stroke of luck, but spent 3 months in the hospital recovering. When he was finally discharged, he made a choice. He applied for a job at the very security company where the massacre had occurred. Rob, the company manager, and Terry brought up the armored truck heist, stressing the tragic loss of 2 security guards and a civilian. Despite the severity of the attack, the mastermind remained unknown. Rob informed Patrick Hill that he would be stepping into the role left vacant by those who had died, but only if he passed a series of weapons tests. Under Bullett's relentless supervision, Patrick endured an exhausting day of drills. He barely met the minimum requirements, but it was enough to earn his place as a security guard. Patrick soon earned the nickname H from his colleagues and quickly became familiar with the rest of the team, including Hollow Bob and Dave. His first transport shift went off without a hitch, calm and uneventful. But the following day, things took a drastic turn. While H and Dave were on duty, an armed gang jammed their radio signal, forcing their truck to a halt. From a distance, the robbers had already taken aim, shouting orders for H to load all the cash into the bed of a waiting pickup truck. Intentionally let a bag of money slip from the truck, making it look like a mistake. As one of the robbers stepped forward to grab it, H hurled another bag at him, then swiftly drew his gun and shot the man in the head. Spinning around, he unleashed a storm of deadly accurate fire, dropping the entire gang in a matter of seconds. Only the leader was left. Gripped by panic, he fled, but H gave chase, cornered him in a narrow alley, and finished him without hesitation. However, Terry disapproved of H's actions. As a consequence, he reassigned H to a desk job for at least a month as a form of discipline. But Faro's CEO, Blake Halls, saw things differently. He not only praised his bravery, but also suggested he was worthy of a promotion. In Blake's eyes, H hadn't just done his job, he had become a hero. Shortly after, H was called in to review surveillance footage from the earlier armored truck heist, tasked with identifying whether any of the recent attackers looked familiar. As the footage rolled, his eyes fixed on one particular robber. He recognized him instantly, but kept his composure, calmly stating that none of the suspects looked familiar. Soon after, it was revealed that the 2 agents were secretly working for a mysterious figure known only as King, a shadowy mastermind who believed H would unknowingly lead him and his crew to the perpetrators of the original heist. Meanwhile, the other security guards praised H for his courage. He responded with a quiet thank you and quietly returned to his duties. 3 months later, during a routine assignment, H and Bullet were suddenly forced to a stop when a motorcycle swerved in front of their truck. Before they could react, they were surrounded by a group of heavily armed gunmen poised to attack. But the moment H stepped out and revealed his face, the gunmen froze, clearly recognizing him. Without a word, they backed off and returned to their base, leaving all the money untouched. Terry was stunned. Had they really retreated just at the sight of H? He was about to question it, but Blake quickly cut him off. Blake turned to H and told him he would now lead his own team and to keep doing exactly what he was doing. That night, H quietly broke into the home of Dana, a fellow security guard. Upon finding a stash of cash hidden in her apartment, he immediately began questioning her. To shake the truth loose, he fired several warning shots, sending Dana into a panic. Terrified, she admitted to skimming money from a job a few months earlier. But H didn't stop there. He laid out 2 pictures of her parents and delivered a chilling warning about what would happen if she ever lied to him again. 5 months earlier, while on vacation in the United States with his son Doge, H received an unexpected call from Mike, a former crime boss and leader of the gang H had once left behind. Mike proposed one last job, promising H that he wouldn't have to get directly involved and that there would be no risk. The assignment was straightforward. H only needed to stay 1,000 yards away and drive to a spot near the docks, where the heist was set to unfold. While H was out buying food, his only task was to relay the truck's movements to Mike. But then tragedy struck. He witnessed Doge's death firsthand. H remained unconscious for nearly 3 months. When he finally awoke, he was devastated to learn his son hadn't survived. He reunited with his ex-wife Jane, who held him responsible for Doge's death. Determined to get to the truth, H confronted Mike and his crew, the very people tied to the tragedy. Reluctantly, H agreed to work with them to track down those truly responsible. A plunged into the criminal underworld, interrogating gang after gang until one finally named some brothers involved in the crime. Following the lead, H tracked down a building where these men carried out brutal crimes. When they refused to give any useful information, A didn't hesitate to take them out. Amid the chaos, he spotted a security guard working there. Wasting no time, H instructed his assistant, Kirsty, to collect records including background checks on the security staff and autopsy reports. After Doe's death, the true identities of those behind the initial heist slowly emerged. They were a group of former Afghanistan veterans, discarded by American society, led by Jackson. His team included Carlos, Sam, Tom, Brad, and Jan, the man who killed Doge and shot H. The scene then shifts to an opulent party hosted by Jackson, where the group discusses their plan to rob an armored truck, gearing up for the bold heist that's about to unfold. The crew put their plan into motion for one last heist, an enormous haul exceeding $150 million. The money was to be divided among the gang and their insider, who turned out to be Bullet. While Jackson and Tom spent weeks meticulously plotting every detail, a growing unease spread through the group. Jan. His violent, reckless behavior threatened to derail the entire operation. Despite growing concerns about Jan, Jackson remains confident that he will ultimately obey orders. The crew then moves to Foro, where Bullet suddenly reveals to H that he is the mole feeding the gang crucial intel on targeted armored trucks. Bullet swiftly disables the security cameras before joining his crew inside an abandoned building. Meanwhile, Jackson's heavily armored team loads into the truck after restraining H. The heist unfolds flawlessly, without a single hitch. Panic strikes one of the soldiers, who hits the emergency button, setting off a chain reaction of chaos. Gunfire erupts immediately as the gang smashes open the hideout's doors, executing anyone in their path. Midway through the bloodshed, a crew member is wounded, but they swiftly shut down the alarm system. Moments later, the gates swing open, and the last man drives the pickup truck inside, ready to begin loading the cash. As soon as the SWAT team gets the alert, they spring into action. 8 minutes later, the police have sealed off the entrance, and SWAT arrives on the scene. Amid the chaos, H grabs a gun from one of the attackers and shoots him in the leg. He rushes forward, choking the man until he collapses. Protected by his bulletproof vest, H is unharmed and moves toward another robber loading cash into the truck. He orders the man to remove his helmet, but when he realizes it's not the killer of his son, H pulls the trigger anyway. Meanwhile, the remaining members of Jackson's crew have been captured by Dana and another guard, awaiting transfer to the police. H hesitates, losing precious seconds. Dana hands him a gun, but the moment he grips it, he unexpectedly opens fire, killing both guards in the hallway. Dave struggles to rise, while Terry is forced outside and gets shot. Suddenly, H finds himself in a brutal one-on-one fight. Despite his injuries, he fights through the pain and ultimately defeats his attacker. Jackson's men carry the wounded man toward the truck when H opens fire. Dave struggles to stand but is immediately shot down. Meanwhile, Terry is forced out of cover. Suddenly, he hears a clicking sound behind him. A bullet strikes his body, and for a moment he fears it's the end. But he quickly reloads, steeling himself to continue the fight. Over the radio, Dave reports that the gunmen have retreated. Yet the moment Dave peeks out, he's met with a hail of bullets. In that tense moment, H carefully scans the scene and spots Jane, the man who killed Doge. They smash through the gate, crashing their armored truck into two police vehicles as SWAT and a helicopter immediately give chase. With just 5 minutes to escape, they plan to use a secret tunnel unknown to the public. Amid the chaos, Jackson is wounded and H takes a bullet to the neck. Without hesitation, Jan finishes H off before they're forced to leave him behind in the truck. Jan and Bullet swiftly move the money down via an elevator, load it onto an ATV, and speed 3 miles to the rendezvous point, where a getaway car waits. When Bullet realizes Jan is the traitor, he quickly draws his gun to stop him. But Jan is quicker. He shoots first, blowing Bullet's head apart. Jan flees with the entire fortune, disappearing into the vast underground tunnel network without a trace. The police fail to seal all the exits in time, allowing him to escape flawlessly. Later, Jan sits in his apartment, admiring the stacks of cash in his hands, when suddenly his phone rings. A familiar voice speaks from behind him. Jan turns around to see H standing there, tossing him a copy of Doge's autopsy report. Jan's eyes scan the page, gunshot wounds piercing Doge's liver, lungs, spleen, and heart. They freeze on a photo of Doge and memories flood back, his silent stare as he lay on the floor. Suddenly, a gunshot rings out, searing pain ripping through Jane's body. He screams in agony, haunted by the desperate look in his son's eyes during his final moments. H doesn't hesitate. Slow and relentless, he fires again, this time hitting the spleen, and finally, the heart. Jan collapses, his body trembling before going completely still. Without a word, H quietly leaves the apartment, where Agent Kim awaits. Kim nods in confirmation, assuring him the ordeal is over and the stolen money will be recovered. Saying nothing, H steps into another car, where a man waits. The vehicle pulls away, vanishing into the night.